Hello, everybody. This is Mike. Sorry, I'm just finishing up my notes here. And today was a mistake. Hang on. Am I still here? I pushed the wrong button. All right, let's see. Am I still here? I will know in a second. So today we're going to be talking about Today we're going to be talking about the 4 kinds of empaths. And I'm going to tell you what that really means. Why are there now 4 kinds of empaths? And what is the connection? So I'm writing this down for myself so I'll remember to talk about it. I'm not going to tell you what that connection is right away. Just give me a second here. Okay, all right, so that's just to remind myself. So this channel is the 4 things that heal BPD and NPD abuse. This channel is designed for people who have been in romantic relationships with somebody who suffers from a cluster B personality disorder, specifically narcissistic personality disorder and or borderline personality disorder. People who suffer from BPD and I guess NPD, I don't know. BPD show up on my channel from time to time, and some people watch it, and I'm happy that it's helpful. But I have to state, I'm not here to talk to borderlines. I'm here to talk to people who have been in relationships with borderlines and narcs. And I'm here to help people like me who need a place where they can feel like they're not crazy, like they can go somewhere where somebody's actually telling them what they need to hear and to feel heard and understood. So that also relates to empaths. So anybody who identifies as an empath, I also identify with those same things. I won't use that term to describe myself, but whatever it is that gives you the desire to identify as an empath, I share those same feelings, tendencies, history, all of that. And technically the word empath is true if the word empath means somebody who feels very deeply. But the reality is that an empath can be anybody who perceives that they feel things very deeply. Anyway, we can get into that in a second. So hopefully I'll be, if need be, you can remind me. I'm going to get back and tell you what it is that connects empaths to narcissists and borderlines, what it is that they all share in common, and what it really means. Why does somebody need to identify as an empath? When somebody really needs to identify as an empath, it has a very specific meaning that you may not like once I share it with you. But you won't be able to deny it. Once I explain it to you, you will see, if you are an empath, that this applies to you. So, what is the definition of an empath? Of course, we're going by modern, this is nothing clinical. This is just things that you find online. So an empath is somebody who feels very deeply. Actually, I should say an empath is somebody who has the experience that they feel things very deeply. Empaths are intuitive, highly intuitive. They may even be claimed to be psychic in their intuitive abilities. They can walk into a room and they can feel whatever. This is. I'm not telling you this is a fact. I'm telling you this is the description. They walk into a room and they can feel everybody's feelings. They have a strong affinity for people who have been in pain or are in pain. They claim to be able to know what everybody's lies are. They claim to be able to have the ability to sniff out whatever your mask is, or whatever it is you're hiding, or whatever it is that you're lying about, or whatever your plots are. They claim to be able to tell a narcissist in the blink of an eye and be able to detect them and all of their evil machinations. They have difficulty being in crowded places where there's a lot of frenetic energy. They have difficulty with loud sounds. They are more comfortable in nature. They are more comfortable around animals, children. They may have difficulty sleeping. They may have difficulty in intimate relationships. They may find that deep intimacy may be too overwhelming for them. Other people may be overwhelming for them. They may have difficulty being around other people when they have intense feelings. Did I get it all? So this is the garden variety empath according to the internet. So that's the empath. What is the super empath? I'm not sure I figured that out. Super just means, above. It literally means above. It's the same word as over. In English, the word is over. Over and super come from the same Indo-European root word. It means over, above. So a super empath is just more of the same. I haven't figured out exactly what makes somebody a super empath as opposed to just an empath. Then we have the dark empath. The dark empath is an empath, obviously, who is dark, obviously. What do we mean by dark? Dark feelings. They deal with darker feelings. They have more of what's the word I want to look for? They have more of, they have strange sense of humor, dark sense of humor. They may be more depressive. They may be more angry. They may be more manipulative. The things that I read about dark empaths is they sound a lot like narcissists. But supposedly the difference is that the dark empath has all these narcissistic tendencies, but they have empathy. And somehow that makes them a dark empath as opposed to a narcissist. We could talk about that for a while. And then the fourth kind of empath is called the Heyoka. And that is a Native American word. I feel quite certain that whatever Native American culture that word came from, I feel quite certain that the people of that culture do not at all co-sign the use of this word for the super empath, the Heyoka. I'm pretty sure that it has been taken completely out of context and hijacked and used because super empath wasn't good enough. Dark empath wasn't good enough. You had to have some word that went beyond that, and so they went to another extreme and they came up with Heyoka. So those are the four types of empaths. And if you relate to any of these, more than likely you relate to all of them. I mean, let's be honest. How many people who identify as empaths, how many literally go through, I've looked at all four types of empaths and I think I'm just a empath bordering on super empath. I thought I was a Heyoka, but I'm really just an empath. I'm just your garden variety empath. I mean, who says that? If you're an empath, if you identify as an empath, you identify as an empath because you have an abundance of emotions. You have the experience that you have more emotions than can fit in your body. I remember saying that about myself. I remember saying, I don't know how old I was. I think I was in my teens. And I think I remember saying, because we didn't have that word back then. There was no such word as empath back then. But I remember saying that I was given more feelings than the average person, And I even looked out over the city of Los Angeles, and I said something to the effect of, I have as many feelings as everybody down there. That was the grandiosity that I had about that. But that was my experience. My experience was that the intensity of my feelings went beyond anything that I could imagine, and I felt, based on my experience, that I had more emotions than anybody that I had come across. So if I, if I had that same experience now and I was in my teens, no two ways about it, I would identify as an empath. Probably I would have called myself a Heyoka. Almost certainly. So that's an empath in terms of the definition. I relate to it. So the one thing that I will say is that everybody's feelings are powerful and unique, and everybody is unique. Every single human on the planet is unique. Empaths have a need to feel unique. That doesn't make it bad, right or wrong. It's just a fact. They have a need to feel unique in this world. And it's actually something that they strive for, to find that uniqueness and to be seen in their uniqueness. And so that's why they're not just an empath, and then they become a super empath. And then if that's not enough, then they become a dark empath. And if that's not enough, then they become a Heyoka, the most powerful type of empath, or so I'm told. All right. So what is it that they have in common with narcissists and borderlines? Borderlines also would fall under the category of what I just described as an empath. Somebody who has an experience of having more emotions than anybody else on the planet. Somebody who feels very deeply. Somebody who has difficulty filtering out all of the stimulation. Loud noises, loud music, intense looks, other people's feelings. They can walk in and feel other people's feelings. They have an absolutely uncanny psychic ability to know what you're thinking, what you want, what your deepest desires are, what your darkest, deepest secrets are. They can tell just by looking at you. So they fall under the category of super empath, dark empath, Heyoka. But do people who aren't borderlines, who identify as empaths, would they say that borderlines are empaths? Probably not. What about narcissists? I'm here to tell you that it is a myth. It is a falsehood that narcissists do not have feelings and don't have empathy. You have been told that. You're continuously told that, and it is simply not true. Psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists have feelings, and they have empathy, and they have intuition. But they also have a bunch of other stuff going on that pretty much makes it impossible for them to access those emotions the same way that you do. They also have difficulty interpreting other people's, on an intuitive level, other people's emotions. Sometimes. Other times, they are the most intuitive people you will ever find. They can tell by looking at you what you're thinking and what you're feeling. That's something an empath would have. The dark empath, when you read, I'll read, it just blew me away when I read, again, what is a dark empath? Let's see. I'm just going to read some things. Here's something somebody that a dark empath said in response to questions. I get a kick out of making other people feel stupid. People who are cheery disgust me. If I could get away with it, there are some people I would enjoy hurting. I love watching people get angry. Let's see, what else? They have this intense, dark sense of humor. They are able to use their empathy in order to empathize with you, get your confidence, and then manipulate you. This is called a con man. So what is empathy? I think this word empathy is being completely, totally, superficially misunderstood by everybody, including the psychological world. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I think one of the biggest tragedies, and I'm a big fan of psychology, by the way, but I think one of the biggest tragedies of psychology is this dogmatic statement, which is, sort of like the Ten Commandments. It's something of that nature. It's talked about by people as well as by psychologists and psychiatrists, and it's an assumption that's not true. And that assumption is that the difference between somebody who is destructive and somebody who is constructive in relationships is empathy. The difference is people who are destructive lack empathy, and people who are constructive have empathy. So here, all of a sudden, there's this new discovery. Oh my God, there's these things called Dark Empaths. And they have empathy, but they're destructive and they're narcissistic. I'm so confused. How is that possible? Empathy means that you're a loving, kind person. If you're not a loving, kind person, then you obviously don't have empathy, because empathy is what gives people the ability to be loving and kind, right? Wrong. And I think that is, I'm not a narcissist. I don't have NPD. Like all humans, I have narcissism, but I don't have NPD. So I can't say I know what it's like to be an NPD. But I'm willing to bet that constantly being told, if you've been diagnosed this way, that you don't have any empathy, you are a narcissist, that's why you're so destructive, that in and of itself creates a self-fulfilling prophecy for the narcissist. Based on what I've heard about narcissists who have tried to recover, which granted is few and far between, that many of them make progress and then they get to a point where they, something happens. Either they don't get, their supply, they don't get their needs met, they don't feel confident, they feel it's a waste of time, and they give up and they say it's just not going to work for me, and they just go back to doing what they know how to do. And I believe that's because they think they're supposed to have empathy, and since they've been told they don't have empathy, then they think it's impossible for them to be constructive. And that's just simply false. So, when I read this thing about the dark empath, like it's some strange, weird, aberration, we're just talking about somebody who has narcissistic tendencies. We're just talking about an empath who is in pain. That's it. Because that's all a narcissist is. Don't get me wrong, narcissistic personality disorder is a very serious thing. They also dissociate, they also don't have an identity, they also don't remember time, they have all kinds of really serious things going on upstairs, and emotionally things aren't connecting. That is very true. But at the same time, we're talking about a human being who's been severely traumatized to the point where they, in order to survive, have to shove all of their feelings down into a tight little corner, and they only know how to operate through their trying desperately to get their unrealistic, grandiose fantasy of themselves onto the world. That's all that they're doing. A narcissist is simply somebody who's trying with everything that they have to replace objective reality, which is painful, which rejects them constantly every single second of their being. They're trying to replace that harsh reality with the grandiose fantasy of themselves being perfect and loved at all times. And when that doesn't work, either because you don't buy into it or because it's not real and it won't ever work. They are destructive. They act without empathy, seemingly. So, what is an empath? I'm going to give you my definition of an empath. Are you ready? Drum roll. My definition of an empath is a hostage taker. I asked you before, what is the one thing that empaths, borderlines, and narcissists, psychopaths, these are all, they're not the same. They're different expressions of the same root pain. But they're very different in all kinds of ways. But the one thing that they have in common, or one of the things that they have in common, is that they are control freaks who take hostages. We already know this. If you've been with a narcissist, you already know this. This is something you know. They take you hostage. You're not in a relationship with them. You are their servant, and you are there to follow their commands. And if you don't follow their commands, they will, like Jehovah, they will throw you in hell and punish you eternally. Borderlines also are hostage takers. They take people hostage when they're love bombing. And the love bombing, besides being an honest expression of their experience of empathy, so let me be clear, borderlines, I am saying that you have an experience of empathy. So remember that when I say what I'm going to say in a little bit, which is going to sound contradictory. So you have empathy. If what empathy is that you have a lot of feelings, you feel a lot of love, you feel a lot of positivity, you want to do good, you want to make somebody happy. You do have empathy, but what you may not know is that it is actually a way of trying to take somebody hostage. You are so perfect for them, you are so loving and so kind to them, you seduce them and you honestly mean it, but what you're doing is you're trying to take them hostage so that they will never leave you. The borderline's initial strategy is to love you so perfectly that you'll never want to leave. And here's the sad part, it works. If you've been on the other end of a borderline's love when they're feeling loving, in the idealization phase, you know that if somebody's a borderline, they vacillate between idealizing and devaluing. They love you or they hate you, one or the other. When they love you, there's literally nothing you can do wrong. I mean, you let out the worst, nastiest fart in the history of farts, and it will be the most beautiful thing anybody's ever done if they're in the idealization phase. And when they're devaluing you, the most beautiful, best smelling flower in the world will be the most disgusting fart anybody's ever let out into the world. That's what borderlines do. But when they're love bombing you, make no mistake, even though it's honest, even though it's sincere, it is also designed to take you hostage with their love. Now, those of you empaths who don't suffer from a personality disorder, you're not a narcissist, you're not a borderline, you are a super empath, perhaps. You say, well, that's so true. You're nodding your head about everything I'm saying. Except remember what I've said is that the empath, the super empath, the dark empath, the Heyoka, the borderline, and the narcissist all share one thing in common, which is that their main modus operandi is to take other people hostage. None of that has anything to do with empathy. So how does the empath take people hostage? When I explain this, you'll understand why the empath becomes the super empath, and then you'll understand why the super empath becomes the dark empath, and then you'll understand why the dark empath becomes the Heyoka. So what happens if you are an empath is that you are filled with a deep desire for love, a deep desire for connection. You have known your whole life, that's why you feel that you have more feelings than the average person, because along with that is a deep, intense, burning passion to love and be loved. It is so intense that you may be a poet, you may be an artist, you may be an actor, you may be a musician, you may have to find some outlet for the intensity of these emotions, and this love that you carry with you, this need to heal others is so overwhelming. And yet, what I'm here to tell you is that it isn't what you think it is. Empaths are not truly empaths. Empaths do not truly have an abundance of empathy. If by empathy we mean being able to feel for others. An empath is somebody who did not get their needs met as infants and or children. And this is devastating. This is traumatic. This is why empaths can't tolerate lots of people. They can't tolerate loud noises. They can't tolerate any intensity. They get tired very quickly when they connect with others, or when they try and help others. They're drained afterwards. People drain them. They feel constantly that people are taking their energy from them and draining them of their energy. The root of that is because you didn't get love as a kid. And that unmet need, it's not just a desire, it's a need. A need is a need until it becomes satisfied. If you had actual valid needs for your emotional well-being when you were an infant, a toddler, little kid, and they did not get met, they repeatedly did not get met, you will become an empath. You will end up having an abundance of feelings. Didn't come out of nowhere. God didn't touch you on the head and make you have more feelings than the average person. Everybody's different. Some people are naturally more empathic than others. But if you identify as an empath, you make yourself different from the rest of the world. You make yourself unique. As I said earlier, empaths have a strong need to feel unique in this world. And your uniqueness, you will identify as being your emotions. You have more emotions than a human being can tolerate having. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you special. Hence the word empath. So what's really going on is that you have unmet emotional needs. You're constantly crying on the inside. Again, there's nothing I'm saying here that isn't true about me. Not one thing, except for the fact I don't have BPD or NPD. But the other stuff I share with BPDs and NPDs. I just didn't get pushed over the edge. And neither did you if you don't have a personality disorder. But I can tell you from experience, and you can also say from experience, that it's no less traumatic. It's no less horrific and painful. The difference between, for instance, the difference between a true dark empath and a narcissist is one is psychotic, which is the narcissist, and the other one is neurotic. And I love this. The difference between neurosis and psychosis is just somebody who's neurotic knows what objective reality is, but it really, really bothers them. it creates tremendous anxiety in them. The person who's psychotic does not know what objective reality is, or goes through periods where they can't tell the difference between their grandiose fantasy and objective reality. The neurotic person knows what objective reality is, but they wish they could dissociate and create their own grandiose fantasy. They wish they had that escape. I said that to one guy who came on the channel and left a comment saying, "You have no idea what it's like for us if you did blah, blah, blah." And I said, "You have no idea what it's like for me. You have no idea what I've lived through." And I posed the question, I said, "I may not be able to know exactly what it's like in your skin, but I have a pretty good idea. So imagine if you had all the feelings that you had, but you didn't have the ability to dissociate. What if you couldn't forget? What if you couldn't zone out? You were constantly aware at all times. You didn't have a way out. Now you know what it's like for me. Are you sure that your experience is worse than mine?" I can't say, and it doesn't matter to me because I'm not competing with anybody. But that's the difference. The empath, the dark empath, is simply a narcissist who isn't suffering from a personality disorder. Everything else is exactly the same. You describe a dark empath, you're describing a narcissist. Except that the narcissist dissociates, doesn't have an identity, and actually doesn't know the difference between their fantasy and reality. Whereas the dark empath, assuming they don't have a personality disorder, they do know the difference. So, because you were a little kid, if you're an empath, because you were a little kid who did not get the love that you wanted from your parents, which was an absolute need for your survival, you really are on half of a battery. Because the fully charged battery would have been your parents loving you, accepting you, and mirroring back to you unconditionally. Your parents giving to you energetically and giving you the feeling that you have value, you have relevance, you have uniqueness in the world simply because you exist and you have feelings and sensations, which is what healthy parents give to kids. They constantly reward the infant for having a sensation. The baby is crying, mom picks it up. The baby burps, mom says, "Oh, good for you." The baby poops, they go, "Oh, yay, you pooped." The baby's happy, they laugh with them. The baby's crying, they bounce them around. There's always something to reward the infant for having some kind of sensation, whether it be their physical body, their nerves, or their emotions. When that is done correctly, the infant then begins to individuate, and they go through the terrible twos, and then they're 3 and 4 years old, and they stand before mommy and they say, "Mommy, I hate you. I want a new mommy." And mommy says, "Good for you. I still love you. I love you because you said that." I'm going to say that again, and they take videos of it and they laugh and they go, "Isn't she cute?" And you're so cute. They get rewarded for having a feeling again, and the parent says, "You can't hurt me with your negative feelings. I love you even though you have your negative feelings. You're so amazing." And the infant or the toddler goes, "Oh, my negative feelings don't kill people. I can have a negative feeling and it doesn't mean the world is going to come to end or that I have to act on it. Oh, look at that. Mom still loves me. Now that I think about it, I still love mom. I'm mad at her right now because I'm 4 years old and I'm individuating. But now I know that this individuation is a good thing. So as I grow up and go through life and I get further and further away from mom and dad and from my friends and from my college, and I start creating my own life, I'm going to feel rewarded every time I individuate, and then you end up with very successful, very happy people. That didn't happen to you. What happened to you was When you individuated, you got punished. You got shamed. You got slapped across the face if you even had a negative feeling. I'll give you something to cry about. So the tears never came out. The individuation never came out. The need to be seen never came out, which creates, the infant never evolves beyond their grandiosity. The toddler never evolves beyond their grandiosity. Because all toddlers are grandiose. Everything is about me right now. And it's when you get to be age 4, age 5, then parents start laying down the law. They start giving you boundaries. And you have to individuate. They send you to your room. That's a good thing under the right circumstance. It's the parent saying, I need you to go into your room and individuate. I need you to learn how to soothe yourself. You now have to stop being so grandiose. You now have to internalize your grandiosity and reflect within yourself. Go to your room, and when you can behave yourself, you can come out and play with the rest of us. You didn't get that. You got shamed. And so you never got beyond your grandiosity. Your needs never got met, which meant that your intense childhood, very real need to be loved and seen and nurtured never got addressed, which means the need grew and grew. What happens when you're hungry and you don't eat? You get hungrier. If your hunger gets less, it means you're starting to die, I guess, or you're fasting or who knows what. But for the first few days, that hunger is it gets worse. Well, your emotions are like that. Your needs get worse and worse and worse. They get more and more intense. And what ends up happening? Oh, you're an empath. I have more feelings than the average person. And you have this grandiosity about it. Being an empath isn't good enough. You then have to be a super empath. So an empath is, first let me make a difference between the empath and the person with the personality disorder. So the borderlines and the narcissists are on one side of the fence, and the super empaths and the empaths who don't have a personality disorder are on the other side of the fence. The difference between the two is that your empathy, which really means you don't dissociate, you can identify, you have some identity within yourself, and you're able to put together time. Tomorrow, yesterday, today, you know how that works. You make a commitment today, that stays the same tomorrow and the next day. That's different from the borderline and the narcissist. But because you aren't as damaged up here, you may be just, by the way, borderlines and narcissists, you may not realize it, but some of us empaths have the same depth of pain that you have, as I stated before. We just can't dissociate. We don't have that ability. It's not an option for us. The difference between you, the empath, and the person with the personality disorder is that the person with the personality disorder is much better at taking hostages than you are. You are a failed hostage taker. That's why you're an empath. Borderline and the narcissist, they are successful hostage. I mean, actually, neither of them are actually successful. Both the borderline and the narcissist both fail eventually. But they're much better at it. And that's because they lack the same kind of empathy that you do, or their empathy is intermittent. So they have the ability seemingly to act sociopathically and psychopathically. And that makes for a much better hostage taker. Because you can't take somebody hostage if you start to care about their freedom and their individuality. That gets in the way of being able to take people hostage. So you try to take the borderline and the narcissist hostage. And the way you do that is with your intense feelings of love. And listen to the words that I'm saying. I'm using my words very carefully. I didn't say your intense love. I said your intense feelings of love. You use these intense feelings of love in an attempt to make yourself indispensable to the damaged, borderline, and narcissist. We know they're total wrecks. They can't do anything for themselves. They are absolutely the ultimate codependents because they are dependent on everything and everybody outside of them. You become their supply. That's just the fancy way of saying they're the extreme codependent and they are dependent upon you. You like this because it gives you an opportunity to feel unique. Remember, this was your main thing. As what you didn't get is this feeling of uniqueness, which is your grandiosity. The need not to just be an empath, but be a super empath. Not just be a super empath, but a dark empath. Not just a dark empath, but I'm a Heyoka. I'm the ultimate. I mean, the word doesn't even, we don't even know what the heck the word means. It sounds frightening, the Heyoka. It goes beyond normal. That's your grandiosity. Your grandiosity that I'm the only one that can heal the borderline. I'm the only one that can heal the narcissist. And I'm saying this because I remember actually thinking that. I remember and looking back on it in hindsight, it's what fueled the feeling that she was my soulmate. That she was my twin flame, if you will. Because I had this feeling that I was uniquely qualified, the only one in the world that truly knew her and loved her, and if she would just let me, I would actually be the only person who could fix her. That was my grandiosity, the uniqueness. Of course, looking back in hindsight, that is absolutely, utterly just ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. Every single other guy before me and after me, I'm assuming she's had other victims after me, every single other empath that she came across had that same experience because that's what she led me to believe. She led me to believe that I was the best. Those are her words. You're the best. You're the only one that really understands me. Nobody has ever understood me like you have. Nobody could ever give to me what you give. So, I mean, I believed it. My grandiosity was there. If I hadn't had the grandiosity, I would have gone, that doesn't sound very accurate. I think there's plenty of other people, I'm not that. But because of my unmet needs, my grandiosity, when she told me that, I had relevance in the world. I had meaning, I had purpose. And my purpose is to be the one person, the one and only person that can fix you and make you feel whole again. And the same thing is with narcissists. If you date a narcissist, it's the same thing. And when the narcissist grooms you, they do that. They make you feel like you're the only one. You're the only one that can give me what I want. You're above all of them. And then while you're riding high on that, they knock you down. They knock you right back down. So if you're an empath, you are a failed hostage taker. That's a good thing. So the borderline and the narcissist, they are successful hostage takers. You are a failed hostage taker. All right, let's see what else my notes, what else did I write down here on my notes? Nope, that's pretty much it. So you get it now. Being an empath is really, I'll tell you what an empath really is now. You ready? So I'm just reviewing stuff we've been talking about before. So the description of an empath, let's go over it again. This is coming straight off of, what they say on YouTube and wherever. An empath is somebody who feels more than the average person. Somebody who feels very deeply. Somebody who deeply loves and cares more than the average person. They love so much it drains them. They can't tolerate being around loud noises. They can't tolerate being around a lot of people. They can't tolerate having too much intimacy because it drains them too much. They lose themselves. They have the ability to figure out what everybody's thinking and feeling before they even think and feel it. They can tell the liars. This is like probably the most important thing you will ever hear from a self-described empath. Whether they're a super empath, an empath, a dark empath, or a Heyoka, they will all focus on this, and this will have the most charge behind it when they say, and the thing that we have is we can tell when you're lying. And they say it with that intensity. They don't say, yeah, I kind of have this ability to, if I'm honest, I kind of know when somebody's not being truthful. I can sort of feel it. No. They say, and they'll have this look in their eyes, and we know when you're lying. We know when you're trying to get something for nothing, and that's when the supernova comes out, and that's when we go berserk because we won't take it anymore. Am I wrong? Every empath will say that. I mean, I say that. I don't say it now. It's a little different now. I say, I'm the last person you want to get in a fight with. But I'm saying the same thing. It's the same thing. It's my grandiosity, and it's the same kind of thing. But it really belies the opposite. The opposite is that you really don't know when somebody's lying to you because why? You've been with so many liars. You've been with so many manipulative, narcissistic, abusive people. In fact, that's the only kind of people that you attract in your life. But you tell yourself what you really want. It's you want what you don't have, which is why there's so much, as Shakespeare said, methinks thou dost protest too much. That's why I can tell when I will know when you're lying. Abusive narcissists will do this. They'll say, tell me the truth, and I'll know if you're lying. Why? Because it takes one to know one. But the need to know when somebody is lying is not a super gift. And let me say, as I said in the beginning, and this is true about borderlines and narcissists, when they're on their game, they are the best. There is nobody that has more intuition. There is nobody that knows what you're thinking and feeling more than the empath. There is nobody more qualified to know what you're about to say and what you're about to feel, and to get in front of you and to give you what it is that you want, to fix that. There is nobody that does that better than an empath when they're on their game. And that is not a gift. That is a skill. It's a skill that you honed since you were an infant. Since you were an infant, you were honing your skill to learn how to get ahead of other people's thoughts and feelings and intentions so that you could survive. And you have taken that infantile survival mechanism and you have expanded upon it. You have put, because you had to survive. If you had angry daddy, and if angry daddy was going to come at you and he was going to beat you up or throw you outside or do whatever the heck angry daddy did, you better know long before he does what he's going to want. If you better know when he's in a bad mood so you can get the hell out of his way. If you can't get out of his way, then you better figure out a way to appease him as quickly as possible. Or if you have the codependent, brooding mother, that's me. The codependent, brooding mother who you never know is going to go off on a crying jag. You never know when she's going to ostracize you and ghost you or kick you out or stop loving you. You never know. And so you better figure out real quick how to make mommy happy, how to make mommy feel good. You better figure that out, because if you don't, and you never know, you got to learn how to walk on eggshells, because mommy might lose her shit all over you. Or mommy might be feeling really loving and come out. This is if you've had a borderline for a mom, you know what I'm talking about. I think my mom had definitely borderline tendencies. And so what ends up happening is that you become an adult and you're magically this super intuitive psychic person who has more feelings than everybody else. And on top of that, I can feel what everybody's feeling, especially the people that are in pain. I can really feel them. And I get drained. Why do you get drained? Because do you have any idea how much brain power it takes to create that skill and to use it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, everywhere you go? And if you're with somebody and they're having issues and you are doing your empath thing, it means you're using 100% of your brain to get ahead of their feelings so you can fix them, because that's your value, your worth in this life. Your grandiosity in this life is your ability to, not who you are. You're supposed to feel unique in the world and valued in the world because you're having an emotional experience. That should be enough. Of course I'm going to live forever. I can feel that I have feelings. I interact. I have consciousness. That's enough. I don't need anything else. You don't have that. So what I've just described for you, when I've laid out to you the super empath who can figure out everybody's feelings before they have them, this is called hypervigilance. Look it up. Hypervigilance is not a spiritual gift. Hypervigilance is a form of PTSD. CPTSD. It means that you are so insecure, you are so damaged, and you are in a constant state of fear and stress to such a degree that you, what they call, scan your environment. You're constantly scanning your environment for potential danger. Why? Because when you were an infant and a little kid, you had to do that. I had to do that. I had no idea when my alcoholic dad was going to call me into the room and mess with my head. I had no idea when my much older brother was going to come in and, slap me across the back of the head as hard as he could because he felt like it. I had no idea when my mom, as I said before, was going to lose her shit about something. I had to constantly be scanning my environment just to survive, just to make it through one more day. That's called hypervigilance. So unfortunately, my empath friends, you have the empath, a failed hostage taker. You have the super empath. This is the neurotically obsessed hostage taker who's putting things into super gear. They're doubling down. They failed when they were an empath. Now they're going to become a super empath, and they're going to work twice as hard to take you hostage and make you love them. When that doesn't work, you're going to be very upset. You're going to get disillusioned and sad and cranky and mad. You're going to become petulant. You're going to become moody. You're going to start punishing people. You're going to start getting yours. You're going to start being manipulative, snarky. And now we actually have what's called the Dark Empath, which is just the super empath who's now very upset and angry because they failed even more than ever to take people hostage. So now instead of getting you to love me because I'm perfect, I'm just going to be a pain in the ass and oh, I'm a dark empath. I'm brooding. Oh, look at my dark makeup. That's all it is. You're a failed hostage taker and you're upset about it. And then you have the Heyoka. The Heyoka assuming that the Heyoka is not a covert narcissist with NPD. The Heyoka is just the dark empath who just is so out of control that they don't, hey man, don't put me in a box. I'm a Heyoka. I go the opposite way. I do the opposite things. I push your buttons. My job is to, you either love me or you hate me. I'm going to make you, I'm a Heyoka. Of course you don't like me. I'm a Heyoka. Oh, of course I bother you. I'm a Heyoka. Oh, you think that I'm just being sarcastic and pessimistic and that I'm being manipulative and vengeful. I'm not. I'm a Heyoka. I'm beyond all that. You're just the failed hostage taker who's now just I mean, you've gone beyond having a temper tantrum. You're now bordering, your neurosis is now starting to border on psychopathy. You can't quite get there yet. Actually, the Heyoka is the neurotic empath who's pretending to be a narcissist. They wish they could become a narcissist. I've heard people say this. There are people on my channel who say, I am a narcissist, I was a narcissist, I wish I had the narcissist abilities. We're down there. We're somebody who is so far along in their empath phase that they actually want to become a narcissist because they believe the lie that the narcissist has told them, which is that nothing bothers me, I don't have any feelings, which of course is a lie. When a narcissist tells you they don't have any feelings, it's a lie. So let me end with what true empathy is. Borderlines say it. In fact, let me just read to you again. There's no shortage of it. Borderlines come on the channel. If they're new to the channel, they're always going to say the same thing because that's, we all do that. We all operate the way we know how to operate. All right, so I don't feel like pulling somebody's covers today, but the gist of it is you don't understand. I'm not a narcissist. I'm full of love. In fact, I have so much love, you have no idea how painful it is. So the argument is, no, I'm not a narcissist. I have empathy. I actually have more love than the average person. If you only knew how painful it was to have all this love. What are we talking about? We're talking about an empath who's, for whatever reason, also got a personality disorder. They dissociate. They can't think in chronological terms. They don't remember things very well. They don't have an identity. But it's exactly the same. But empathy has nothing to do with how you feel. This is what I wish psychologists would figure out. They've been going on this myth that if somebody has empathic feelings, they are loving and kind, or they have the ability to be self-aware and loving and kind. And that's not true. It's just not true. Narcissists have empathy. They manipulate their empathy so that they can get what they want from you. They manipulate their empathy so that they can figure you out. Having empathy means nothing. The only thing that matters is, are you acting in a constructive manner without attachment? And anybody can do that, even if they don't have any loving feelings. The borderline is the perfect example because they are filled with loving feelings, but they can't follow through on them consistently if they're not in therapy. The only difference between a destructive borderline and a destructive borderline is the borderline who has the exact same feelings going on inside of them, but they take constructive action. The borderline that is toxic simply acts on all of their impulses. When they split on you and they want to hurt you, they can't tolerate that having that impulse and not acting on it. So they have to act on every impulse they have, even the one that says that they have to hurt you. The person who has empathy goes, wow, I'm feeling really angry and destructive right now, but I wouldn't want that if I was that person, so I'm not going to do that right now. So the borderline, if the borderline wants to act with empathy, I'll tell you exactly how to do that without having any feelings of empathy. You ready? When you split and you want to destroy your partner, you want to break up with them, destroy them, devalue them, when you have that impulse, instead of acting on that impulse, tolerate that you have that feeling, and then do the opposite. All you have to do is just do the opposite for as long as you're in physical contact with that person. The person's in front of you. They burped, farted, looked at their watch, or God forbid they told you they loved you. You're now flipping out. The intimacy was too much. The fear of engulfment was too much. And now you are flipping out and you have to destroy them. And in your mind is telling you that they are actually plotting your demise. They have been doing it from the beginning of time. They've been doing secret satanic rituals under the house while you're asleep. And now it's all, now I know. So instead of acting on that, you're going to do the opposite. You're going to smile. And you're going to say something loving and kind to them. And you're going to kiss them on the cheek, and you're going to say, I have to go run an errand. Sorry, I got to run. I'll be back soon. And then you go off, you call your therapist or whatever, and you deal with it, and then you do what you said you were going to do, and you come back. And you continue to love them because it has nothing to do with them, your feelings. If you can do that, you can then say you have empathy. But if you are filled with this loving feeling that is driving you, and that loving feeling changes and you act on a negative feeling, your loving feeling no longer counts as empathy. It doesn't count. Empathy is the result of the action. If you have the corresponding feeling, then you're lucky. That's called a normal, healthy person, I guess. They have healthy feelings and they act on them and they're congruent. But it doesn't matter. If you are filled with hatred, violence, murderous rage, and you act in a constructive way without manipulating somebody, in other words, you're not doing it to get something from them, which is what the narcissist does, then you can say you have empathy. Until your actions line up with your intense loving feelings, from my perspective, you don't have the right to say that you have empathy. I really wish we would change that. I wish empathy was about your actions, not about your feelings. So it's no longer a badge of honor, borderlines. You have more love. You don't realize how much love you have to give. Yeah, I do. But I also know, if you're untreated, that love is then going to set me up for your hatred that I didn't deserve. And that will destroy whatever loving feeling you want to take credit for. But the same is true for the empath. All right, I'm starting to talk in circles. I'm babbling, so I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. Let's see if there are. Nope. Okay, I agree with that. Okay, she's agreeing with me. Okay, I don't see any, but there aren't any questions here, so I'm happy to let it go for the evening. All right, so that's it. The four things. What are the four things? If you have been damaged in a relationship with a borderline or a narcissist, these are the four things. And this is, again, I don't have a personality disorder, so I don't know what borderlines or narcissists need to recover. Excuse me. But if you are somebody who does not have a personality disorder, in my experience, this is the best way to heal from the relationship. And here's what I guarantee you. If you've been damaged by a borderline or a narcissist and you're still damaged, you're still in pain, you're still ruminating, you're still sad, you still fantasize about it, you want revenge, you want closure, you want them to understand you, you still can't stop thinking about them. It's been years and months and you're still in a lot of pain, it's still there, it means that you haven't healed. So what I guarantee you is that if you do the 4 things, because the name of this channel is the 4 things that heal BPD and NPD abuse, my experience is if you do the 4 things with everything you have, you will heal from that relationship. In fact, you will look back on that relationship with no regrets and with no pain. In fact, you will look back on your abuser with compassion, true compassion. You will have nothing but love for them, and you will forget the relationship ever happened. These are the 4 things. You must go completely no contact, make it impossible for them to contact you. 2, you must work all 12 steps of CODA.org, Codependence Anonymous, or whatever 12-step group you want. And you have to work the 12 steps with a sponsor, and then you have to sponsor somebody else. If you haven't done that, you haven't done number 2. Number 3, you work with a psychologist who understands cluster B abuse. And then number 4, some kind of daily meditation, whatever that is for you. If you do those 4 things every day with everything that you have, at some point, I guarantee you, you will wake up one day and you will go, you know what, I don't even, what was that person's name again? I remember I was in a lot of pain over that. And you'll look back on it and you'll go, I thought I was in love with that person, but I look back on it now and I wasn't. I thought that person really loved me, and as I look back on it now, they didn't. They weren't lying to me. They had a mental illness. It's not their fault that they acted that way. They can't control their behavior. It's my fault for getting involved with somebody that I'm the silly one. I'm the one that chose to keep going back and getting hurt. And you'll laugh about it, and you'll have 0 pain. But only if you do the 4 things. And you can't do 1 or 2 or 3, you have to do all 4. That's how it works. And I'll know if you've done the 4 things or not. Okay, so I was waiting to see if any questions came up. I don't see any questions, so we'll leave it at that. All right, guys. I may or may not be on the channel for a week or so. I am in the midst of a move. I'm moving from Australia to Florida. So the next week, I'm moving in a week. The next week is going to be quite the intense experience. Hopefully it'll all go fine and I won't have to worry about it, but I'm having a little anxiety about it. Okay, that's it, guys. That's it for me. I will see you next time I see you. Take care of yourselves. And do the 4 things. If you do the 4 things, you'll never have to watch my channel anymore. That's my hope for you. My hope for you is that you won't need to watch this channel ever again, and then I won't need to make any more videos. Okay, that's it. I'll see you when I see you. What am I looking for? Where's my end screen? I want to find an end screen. How about... I can't find it. All right, I haven't found an end screen. I've got too much stuff on